Guys, I'm DW. I have won 3 majors in CSGO, and this is Thorin's YouTube channel.
Right, this is going to be another one of our Patreon donated discussions, and usual group of people where if you've seen any of the past ones, everyone here has been on one of those ones, if not multiple, if not every single one. So let's just cut all the usual jazz and skip straight to like, who's got a topic that would be a good one we could start with?
Karrigan being benched.
Yeah, I had that one as well.
Okay, so a very topical one. On the day that we're recording that, basically is when it was like officially confirmed that Karrigan would leave the team. Obviously, previously, for people who don't know the information, he actually had already been removed as the in-game leader a couple of months back now, after they gave him a chance. He got removed at the major, but then people forget they actually technically let him do ASL New York, and then they actually bombed that tournament and didn't even make the playoffs. And then after that, since then, NiKo's been the in-game leader and Karrigan was just a player in the lineup. So, okay, right, Zen, what do you think on this one? Karrigan being kicked out of the team?
I mean, there's two pieces. The one is where Karrigan goes. I think wherever he goes, it will be good. I'm just very curious what will happen in FaZe. Will they just get another in-game leader, or are they actually getting, a simple type character and NiKo stays as the in-game leader? I think that could be two different scenarios. I hope they're going for the new in-game leader, but I doubt it.
From what I understand, NiKo would take over the in-game leader role again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a great idea, but I mean, it will be interesting to see. They'll be very, very strong individually, so everyone will be afraid. But I mean, if these last tournaments they weren't a great showing, so I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, let's do both those angles then. So let's go first of all just with Karrigan getting removed. What do you think of this move in terms of like was it a good move? Do you think, Jerkies? Karrigan get removed from the team?
You're going to destroy your structure, but at some point you kind of have to, given their results recently. I feel NiKo's individual in-game leading style leads to many purposes, like going forward. Like you individually open up your players again, while Karrigan's style in contrast is that of a very methodical and like style team, which is tactically they're very much like set in their pieces and ways that they would approach a map. So I think going forward, NiKo style will suit them better because as they self-proclaim superstar lineup, which is individually top tier players, let's see how they move forward, I'd say.
Where do you come down on this, G-Man?
I'd say all right, so on that angle, I don't understand. If you're gonna kick Karrigan, you might as well and like say, okay, we're gonna go for a whole revamp. We're gonna go for a new in-game leader, especially that there are some notable in-game leaders who've been kicked out of their teams recently, like MSL. Existence is available, although I doubt he would ever leave the French scene. But that's besides the point. I have difficulty justifying letting NiKo, who wants to be, the kind of simple like player who just kind of gets turned loose onto a map, detracting from his own playing abilities by calling. It's kind of like the shocks effect, like I feel like I have to in-game lead if we want to win, but if I in-game lead, we won't win. But I still have to, I have to salvage some way, which I mean, good on him for feeling that he's like, feels like he can do both, but I don't think it will work. With regards to Karrigan leaving, I would say, he could end up in either another, international team, depending on North's success going on. Perhaps he ends up in an all-Danish lineup again, but probably an international roster is kind of the only way for him to go. I mean, I think most people with a brain realize that, Karrigan's a pretty, he's a well-documented, great in-game leader, and it doesn't make sense for him to be out of a lineup for too long. So he'll land somewhere. I'm not quite sure where yet.
Like, this is a real tough move for me because it's one where, I mean, you're going to find this almost any time you have a lineup that was an all-time great lineup, and because in doing so, if you have an all-time great lineup, odds are most players fit their roles and were very good within their roles. So it's always hard to make a move because there's never, almost never at least, going to be like even an on-paper upgrade. Whatever move you take's a gamble. But I do feel as though if you look at the FaZe lineup, clearly someone had to be kicked. Like a team as good as this, what's sad is they didn't even live up to really the potential of the players. Like it's been quite a while since it was that FaZe clan that used to at least just tear it up in the server. And even if they lost, okay, first of all, you're losing to an all-time great team if it was SK Gaming last year or whoever it might be. But They don't even play it as well now, so I already was up for a kick anyway. The big issue I have is that the reason we can't really know how much of it was on Karrigan is because they never changed any of the players and gave him a different player to work with. Like, they just kept the same lineup, and then when it stopped winning, essentially he kind of got like the vote of no confidence from the players, and so he was removed. So, like, I personally don't buy the angle that he was the only problem in the team. Like, I think probably at least one or two other players probably contributed to the issues they had in terms of the results. I don't think just replacing him, even for another in-game leader, necessarily changes things. And as you've alluded to, odds are there's not really any big in-game leader out there they're going to get. Like, the only one I've ever speculated over the last few months, because the only one I could think of that, like, is it like a big blockbuster trade, like, if you're going to gamble, why not, is like if you could somehow get Fallen to come to your team. But as you can see, it doesn't look like there's any signs that he leaves MIBR. If anything, it's going the other way and people join MIBR. So at the moment, it's a big gamble. They had to take a gamble anyway. I guess my problem is this. I guess on a much lower level, this is reminiscent of what happened in Virtus Pro, where when they kicked out Taz, I had to say, well, yeah, you know what, Taz was pretty bad individually, and as an in-game leader, maybe he didn't do his job as well as he could have, but there's no way it was just Taz who's the problem here, so you're inevitably going to have to kick someone else later. So for me, I don't think this will be the solution. I think whatever they do now, it's still going to change the lineup in some way. I don't know who it is, that's the tough part. I can't blame them when you've got a team as good as this. You might want to believe that a guy can reclaim his form and get it back together. So I don't really know what solution they do. And the other side of it, I think, is probably the more interesting one, which is where does Karrigan go? Because seemingly, unless people really buy the angle that, you know, his career's busted, because I know a lot of fans will say, like, oh, well, you know, if he was kicked as an in-game leader, then maybe no one will want him. Anyone who can think beyond about 6 months back, you would think there'd be a lot of teams who want this guy. Bear in mind now, you know, he's been a part of international squads. Obviously, he's led different styles of teams. He had a lot of different talent he's worked with in all the FaZe clan lineups, the Astralis lineup. You would think, like, literally he would have a line outside his door, and it would almost be him. He would just choose where he goes, because, like, I would go the other way and say, like, which teams wouldn't consider him? And you have to say, it must be a very small list. It's basically like Astralis, Na'Vi because they're CIS, MIBR because they're Brazil. That's about it. Everyone else, in theory, should be offering this guy a spot. So what do you think? Who do you think's a realistic destination?
Mouse, Optic, North. That's just off the top of my head, like, three instantly come to mind.
I mean, the tweets today are that Cloud9 might take him.
They need a real in-game leader, so yeah.
Cloud9 will take anyone at this point. So, I don't know how big of a statement that really is.
The other question is, who the fuck wants to join Cloud9?
No one.
You know?
Well, we're a former major winning team. What do you mean?
Who fluked their win at the major by an incredible run that will never ever happen again.
Like, the rough thing is, if, like, as you ran down that list there, I'll go through them all. So, okay, mouse spots. I'll tell you right now, here's the problem. Unless I'm mistaken, unless there's some, like, player who I haven't talked to, because I guess I never talked about this specific example of what would happen if you had the choice of getting Karrigan. This is a perfect example of where you can't, as an outsider, think that people are going to make moves rationally, because I can already tell you right now, the people who play in mouse sports would be like, why would we get Karrigan? We've got Chris J. That's not a joke. They would say it for real. Like they would, and in fact, they would even use the logic of, like, well, we're a good team right now, so why would we use, like, pro teams, as long as they like a teammate and he plays well enough, there's no such concept as an upgrade in their mind, you know.
Yeah.
Like, they have to actually dislike the guy to want to kick him. They have to think he's actually shit in the game before they'll kick him out. That's why you get so many teams who keep a player for way too long, you know. So sadly, the mouse spots one, I agree with you. Logically, to me, if anything, mouse spots would be the perfect pickup, because it's basically not only the poor man's FaZe, but it was the poor man's FaZe without a Karrigan. Like, Chris J does it. Like, for me, Chris J does a good job. He's a very serviceable player. But as an in-game leader, I don't think he's some amazing in-game leader. And if you want someone who can take players who are good but haven't been, like, god-tier players and make them better, that's pretty much, Karrigan fits the bill. So I personally, I'd like that move. Don't think it's going to happen. What was after that? Optic. Right, Optic's the one that on paper should be the 100% slam dunk. They've got an all-Danish lineup. They're making terrible use of all the players they've got. One of the players has even fucking played with Karrigan before. Then you've got to add in, they've got the money to do it. The problem with that one is, again, does Optic management actually believe Snappy's been an issue in the team? Do they want to spend the money to get Karrigan? Because obviously people have seen Optic as an org's been downsizing massively the last year or so. It's another one where, Like I think for me, I think that's the one where for every single party it makes the most sense. Like I even feel like even if you're Karrigan, you could get that team back on track real quick. They've got some real talent in that squad. Again, will they do it though? What was the third one you gave after
North? You cut MSL.
Unfortunately, this'll sound bizarre. Because of all of them, you would think North on paper should have been the slam dunk, right? Big Danish org, lots of money. They haven't got a really true in-game leader. They want to be as good as an Astralis. This is even a guy who fucking has beaten Astralis loads of times in his career. Sadly, I actually think North is the least likely of the three names that you recited there, because one of the reasons they cut MSL within their team is that this year especially, they have put a lot of emphasis in the North org on Ave, the coach, having a lot of saying over the players, and then Wimp as like the director getting to decide who gets cut and who stays. And so unfortunately, from my conversations with them over the year, they have been heavily trending towards wanting like a very specific type of team and type of player. And like, it's not even about just skill. Like they want, for example, players who like go to the gym and work out. Like they have all these different weird criteria.
They're focused on being a brand more than being a successful scene.
And so the issue I have with that is if you bring Karrigan in, he doesn't really play into any of the, like if you bring Karrigan in, he's not going to fit as a cog in your machine. His deal is like, give me control of the team and let me run the team and make it a Karrigan team. So my problem with that is North is basically trying to do what they think Astralis has done. Like, you know, everyone hypes up this angle of like Astralis has got the infrastructure and the sports psychologist and the coach. It's like, you do realise none of that would matter if the team they were putting in the server was the last fucking G2 lineup. Like, it's not like you'd be winning anyway. So North is very heavily going that direction, and just so at the moment personally I would just guess I don't think Karrigan's the player they want. You know, like I think a lot of people look at Karrigan and see someone who it's like whoever gets him, you know, it's maybe 1 or 2 years left as a player. You know, he's trying to win the major on the way out, obviously. You know, it's not really the sort of guy who you're bringing in to like start from scratch and build a 5-year project. At least that's my perspective.
Do you want your team to be improved or not? Do you want to stay where you are? Do you want to stay complacent? Like Optic is a team who has not had really good results lately. So that is the most likely one he should join. Why? Did Snappy prove himself over this course? Currently, I'd say no.
I mean, if I personally had to pick one move, like, I actually wouldn't make it the Optic one just because at the moment Optic's not a very good team, you know. I feel like if you play like Karrigan, come on, does the pass count for nothing? I don't get a fucking good team when I get off that. So the two teams I would like to see him go to is either Mouse Sports, because I feel like overnight he could actually take that team to the next level. Like, as much as people don't realise it, I think that team's already got the pieces that could be even better than they are now. But they just do okay with it. The other team I would like to see, especially in like what we've just seen happen, is why can't you join Team Liquid? Team Liquid's also got pieces right now where if you're an in-game lead, it's the dream to get pieces like that. Like, these are pieces where like you know you can win tomorrow if things go well. So they're another team trying to beat Astralis. This is a guy who's made his career fucking beating Astralis the last year or so. So
yeah, but
I'd give it a shot. Now again, same logic with Mouse Spots and Chris J. People are going to say, what do you mean? Nitro is doing a good job. Yes, you're right. He is doing a good job. But what are you trying to do? Get someone who's doing a good job, or are you trying to win the fucking major? If you're trying to win the major, you have to have the best team. Like you know, that's basically the mentality you've got to have. So I know it's harsh. It's like it fucking sucks. But it's the move you've got to do.
Still so many egos on Team Liquid as well currently. And with the rumored acquisition of Stewie 2K, I mean, there's going to be more than one OllieJ. NAF.
Yeah, but that's also the thing.
That's free egos already you have to control.
I think Karrigan is a player that actually could win those players' respect, though. Like, that's the key aspect. Now, he's never going to get a chance to, so it might be irrelevant. What do you think, then? Is there any other teams we haven't listed that would be a good destination? What about one that, it doesn't even have to be a plausible one, just one that you would like to see?
I mean, I think Navi obviously doesn't make sense because they're from...
Why not?
CS,
if Zeus is leaving?
But Zeus, is leaving. Edward should also leave, and that they could make a more international team with another piece that they could bring over.
Because, I mean, that already on paper... by the way, that's not even... I legitimately thought about that today as well. Because when I thought to myself, well, there's another thing they always cry about in the CIS region, like, oh, there's no good in-game leaders, where do we go? If you've got Simple, fuck it, make it an international team. Give Karrigan Simple, and he'll go to fucking work, mate.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see that.
Like, Simple is at the moment literally an in-game leader's dream, because the guy literally is your star player, opens the site, kills everyone, and closes the round as well. Like, I'd love to have that for an end game leader.
Yeah.
Sadly, you are right. Just politically, there's almost no chance they'll do that move, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they actually legit think that team's fine. So, I mean, we all have different perspectives on that one, don't we?
They think that team's fine.
Navi's like that dog sitting in the house that's on fire with a cup of coffee going, this is fine. You know?
It's because they really are a squad, right? Where, like, as much as it was easy to talk shit on mouse spots or picking up snacks, I don't agree with the move itself, but I did agree with the premise of, like, we have to do something to go to the next level. In case of Na'Vi, they're the opposite. They could fail to win 10 events, and in their mind, it'd be like, we are still working towards being better, and we are working on this map, and, you know, we have confidence in our lineup. Like, some people you can't get through it's almost like corporate brainwashing, you know. It's like, once that gets into them, they're just ruined at that point. Right, what about another topic then? What do we go to next? What's on your mind?
To stay in CSGO, since Astralis has recently won Blast Pro Series, how do we have how many more tournaments until Astralis is, you know, the GOAT CSGO team, or
none.
do we already
Literally
say
none.
that Astralis is the best team of all time?
I'd say none. They are the best team of all time that I've seen any Counter-Strike version ever.
It's just a question of like whether or not. I would say absolutely. I'd say they've eclipsed 2016 Fnatic, especially if you. It depends on how much you want to attribute to that core four. Do we count the Astralis era as, you know, from Atlanta?
Usually, era means 5-man lineup.
Yeah. So we'll go with, all right. So this 5-man lineup. I mean, 10 trophies in 1 year. A major included over $1 million in prize money. Just from winning, first team to win the Intel Grand Slam. If they win the next major, I think it's even more concrete. But I think already it's pretty easy to say that they are the best team of all time.
I can't even think of a lineup that comes close to them. Like, the era of competitive Counter-Strike is much better currently than any we've seen. Secondly, the Fnatic lineup was great. Absolutely, no disregard to them. They're second best in history currently for me. 2010 Na'Vi, different version of the game. Won almost every title big title that year. Still can't think of them being better than this Astralis currently.
What do you think, Zen?
So, I mean, the only thing that take it away is that they fall off a cliff, or if this changes on Liquid, MIBR, and FaZe, that, you know, they could start a new year and kill them, but that seems highly unlikely. So, as long as they, you know, keep being very good for a couple more months, I think they're clearly the best. The next major is a long time away, so that's a bit of a stretch to think that they could do it. If they do that, I think that's
It's only 3
unbeatable.
months.
Yeah.
They've kept this form for much longer than most eras last, so how long can they keep it going? Who knows?
Yeah, that's actually probably the scariest part, is that normally if you look at how long teams get to number one and stay on top four, this actually should be when you're leveling off. In fact, this should be when you sort of, like, if you win them on the way out the door, like Fnatic did, or some of these, or NiP did, you know, where it's like the last few tournaments are like by the skin of your teeth, you're losing, but you somehow win one here and there. On paper, this is the most dominant period of Astralis. Like, they've just won like 4 titles in a row, something ridiculous, you know. Like, it's actually insane that in theory that they're Zenith now, and now all these months after they formed is when all the teams are still going like, how could anyone beat them? Oh, what could possibly happen? It's like, well, it's you the ones who's supposed to fucking beat them. What are you talking about? This doesn't even make sense. What I find funny about Astralis is, like, not only can you make the statistical case they're the best ever, just in terms of raw trophy count, you can make the case they're the best ever. What I think is pretty convincing is do all of that, then just look at the eye test. The eye test is fucking leaps off the page. They look like easily the best team to ever play Counter-Strike. Like, you know, when Fnatic would go ham, I would say things like, yeah, but fucking hell, all of my had to do a lot in this round to win him, you know, or when NIP was the best. They had the 2 best players in the world. Like, this team doesn't even have the best player in the world, has all these factors where you watch them play in the match, and even if you took the nameplates off, you could see which team Astralis is compared to all the rest. Like, the actual, like, team element of the game just looks so much above any other team I've ever seen play the game. So I'm already with them on them being number 1 already. I personally think they were number 1 even a couple of tournaments ago. So it just gets more and more almost indisputable. Like, I do think you can still make the argument. Like, but the problem is it's starting to get so that it's the other way around. It's the other teams you have to make the argument for. Like, if you want to make the case for Fnatic at this point in time, you can only go by like pure trophy haul, or say they had another major over them, or you can go with an angle of sort of like, well, I think this team that they beat was better than the teams that Astralis beat. But like I made a video about, I have a real hard time with that one. Because I think to do that judgment, you have to do eye test. So does the eye test actually tell you that the teams that Astralis is beating is better than the ones that Fnatic was beating? I think that's a pretty debatable topic you could have there. Like, I think this Team Liquid squad right now, you can make a case this is better than like fucking Virtus Pro was the year Fnatic was on top or whatever, you know. There's some pretty good teams right now. It's just like I said in my video, they're in this stupid scenario where because they win every tournament, logically everyone else must suck because no one else is winning any tournaments. Like, I can't handle it. Like, by that logic, they already do it, but that's why everyone says NiP was in an era where everyone sucked, right? Because they never lost. So
NiP played in an era like when NiP was on that streak, they were the only team to be professionally paid until Very Games came along. That alone should like say enough basically on how competitive the era was.
But considering how well everyone's playing, don't you think 1 or 2 of these players could fall off and make it just not number 1?
If I had to assume, the number 1 reason why Astralis will be stopped, I don't think will be to do with any other team. It will just be, as you say, it's inconceivable a team can play this well for this long. And by the way, that's exactly when all these great storylines of, well, it's because we've got the best structure and we're all playing as professionals and practicing for an office and we have a sponsor. That's when that won't make any sense, will it? Because all those things will still be true. Mm-hmm. Like, if there's one... Here's the sad thing about all team sports I've noticed, is by default, no one gives coaches enough credit. The second the team wins, they give them way too much credit. It's always going to be the way. So, like, I guarantee you, if Astralis becomes the 4th best team next year, magically Zonic won't be the best coach in everyone's mind. I don't know why. You won't have known what they could have been doing, but that is the way people will think, unfortunately.
It's also funny because Team Liquid finally figured out how to play against Astralis on Mirage. Like 2 free tournaments back, you saw them pushing very aggressively in middle. Astralis instantly realized after free maps, after free rounds, they call a timeout. Guess who was the guy talking? Zonic. 3 rounds in, aggression stops instantly because Zonic knows how to counter it. Ding ding! Like, guy just knows how to play Counter-Strike strategically on a much better level than most people understand fundamentally.
Mm-hmm.
That is also, I think, one of the biggest problems I have at the moment in the scene. If you look at the other teams out there, it's like they have just too many disadvantages compared to Astralis. And these are all ones, by the way, where they don't have to exist this way. Like, is FaZe Clan not allowed to have a really good in-game leader? Is fucking Na'Vi not allowed to just get other players? Like, no one's stopping. Like, what's mad is Astralis is doing nothing to stop these teams improving. These teams themselves choose not to make the big moves. Probably the most stupid move is if you look at how the year's gone for the French scene. Fucking golf clap to the French scene for managing to fuck itself up even more than it was before. So you took G2, ruined that lineup completely, and now it isn't even the one premise it had, which was at least it's like Existence has got his own system. No, now it's just a shit version of that team that they had in Existence. Vitality is literally one man carrying a bunch of washed up veterans, and then the other squad that they have out there is just LDLC has no future whatsoever. So like they've somehow made an even less of all the talent they have in the scene. So like, I don't really know who and Team Liquid's obviously about to, not through their own choice, have their lineup stripped anyway. So at the moment, it's real tough to see the team that improves. Because if you notice, when someone, about 2 months ago, Epicenter did that interview where they asked me, like, who would be the team to beat Astralis? I gave 2 examples. I said, it's either FaZe Clan right now because they've got their lineup. By the way, I was absolutely right. FaZe Clan did indeed go on and beat them in a best of 3. Or it's Team Liquid, because they've already in theory got an amazing team and you think eventually they're going to beat them. Didn't happen and apparently never will happen now. So it is kind of a dark spot in that sense that unless Astralis, as we say, sort of do everyone a favour and just get a bit worse, pretty plausible scenario, to be honest. It's not even like they all have to start playing worse. One dude just has to get 10% worse and people have got a shot to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could also add another one, I guess, which people start stopping and thinking about is Valve could change the map pool again. Who knows what the map pool change could be? Any map pool change can alter the fortunes of all the teams in the scene. It can just go that way. So there's another one.
Mm-hmm.
As was evident in previous majors, when map pools get changed, teams stop being good sometimes.
Yep, absolutely. It is quite a large factor in how, what determines the competitive scene.
Do you have a topic, Zen? Do you have something you want to talk about?
Well, the thing you just mentioned of all the French lineups. So is there a fix? Do you think there's a reasonable fix that it's not just bringing Existence back and giving him slightly better players? Or is
I can tell you right now, categorically, that will never happen.
Okay.
Unless, and when I say never, I mean in the context of what we just saw in the French scene. So, like, as in, if you give him 3 more years and then eventually they try everything else and then someone goes, hey, didn't that guy used to do our league? Then it might happen. But I mean, as in, his chance is done now. Like, that ship has sailed completely. As soon as they bailed on him in this team, I mean, as
even
you saw in the
outside
longer, which team is going to pick him up?
I mean, any of the others, I don't know.
Any of the other French teams?
They're all bad. So that's
no. I'm telling you categorically, Vitality don't want to play with him. They all hate him. That's all. That's like the Existence hater crew.
There's too much politics involved.
LDLC literally kicked him out of their team. They have no interest in playing with him. He has nowhere else to go, mate. This is the saddest thing about Existence is any time in the last 2 years he could have been in top 10 teams that are international teams. He refuses to speak English. Even though he speaks English, and because he speaks just good enough English to know he's not the best at English, he thinks he has bad English. Therefore, he's put no effort in whatsoever. I've told him this would be so simple to fix, and so because he won't fix it, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, his plan is exactly what he was doing the last 3 years. Sit around in the French-Belgian scene, watching demos, waiting for someone to come along and give you an opportunity, not realising you just had your last chance. It's over for you. It's done. You're done at this point. It's over.
Yeah, he has to go to an international team.
I even think he fucked up his handling at the end of G2. Like you saw in his tweet longer, that's absolutely true. They didn't want to kick him out the whole team. Actually, Sox was fine with him staying in the lineup as long as he's just a player. Now, this is where I think Existence completely misplayed his hand. What you do is you agree to that initially and you play as just a player for the sake of being in G2. Then in 6 months when the team hasn't done well, now you are in position to say, I already have my foot in the door. How about I become the in-game leader again with whatever new player we've picked up? Players never think that way, sadly. So in Existence's mind, it's like, well, I want to be an in-game leader. So if I can't be an in-game leader, I have to leave. Which is like, yes, follow that thought through. Which team will you be the in-game leader for now? What, no team? So then logically you aren't an in-game leader. Doesn't work.
As was evident, like, you had Shocks, you had Kenny S, and still no results.
Like, I think Existence strikes me from talking to him as one of those people that is like really, like, I'd love to know his family background. He strikes me as like I give you the best analogy ever. He's like one of the fucking Stark characters out of Game of Thrones, where like they literally exist in a world of like villainy and people just fucking everyone over and politics running everything. Yet they try, they're like, meta game strategy is if you're just a really good person all the time and tell the truth, it'll probably work out for you. And it's like that doesn't work whatsoever. Like you would have to exist in a different type of fantasy story for that to be the best strategy. Existence is like that. He really thinks if you sit around and you just try really hard and you do your job and you're a polite person, that like the world will come to you and be like, hey, here's everything, just succeed. Whereas it's like that ain't the world.
So basically his career was like Ned Stark. First he gets stabbed with a spear to the leg, and then he gets decapitated.
It's over for him, mate. It's over.
What about the other French lineups? Is there any that could become top 5?
No, that's the saddest thing. That's why I said the scene, it's impressive, because you would think after last year, there's no way you could fuck it up more. Well, Hold my fucking French wine, because they've got to make the scene even worse. Think of the 3 teams you have. You have a team that is NateDOhDoubleG and Shox, who both aren't really good players at the moment, and just dog shit pickups that you would never put your faith in, but that they seemingly did because of their coach. Vitality, again, have you noticed how everyone was loving hyping Vitality? No one hypes Vitality, they just hype Zebu, that's it.
Yeah.
So the same people who were like literally making it sound like G2 should commit suicide because they wouldn't put Apex and NBK in the lineup. Where are those guys now? Are they killing it in Vitality? I don't think so somehow. So Vitality's a waste of time. LDLC just doesn't have the talent. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, that team's no going nowhere. And even worse, all 3 lineups have contracts signed, and so there's no foreseeable future in which anyone's buying anyone out. So about your only hope is this. The only one of those 3 that could vaguely be good is Vitality if the players play anywhere close to the name value, or G2 if in fact NateDOhDoubleG and Shox ever both play well at the same fucking blue moon inside one server while I'm watching a spectator client. That's about it. I don't have any hope whatsoever for the French team now. I think it's worse than it's ever been.
Sadly, we're going to have to wait until all the contracts run out and then another shuffle happens.
Ay.
Hypothetically, what team would you like create from all those people then?
Well, it seems like you have to get Zebu, Shox, or at least Zebu and NateDOhDoubleG or Zebu and Shox together in some combination. I doubt you'd ever get all 3 together. If you did, that could maybe be...
At this point in time, why not just fucking put all 3 together, right?
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, I'm saying in the world where you actually get that to happen. In reality, there's no way you'll ever get all 3 on a team because of the way contracts work.
Who says that doesn't happen in the long run?
In the long run, it's possible. I'm not...
Currently, as you said...
Extreme doubt. Extreme doubt has been cast on my mind whether or not that ever happens. But...
Wait long enough.
You'd have to get some combination of those 3 players together, and then I don't even know where are all the French in-game leaders, man. Like they're non-existent. So
they all ended like Ned Stark.
Yeah, with their fucking eyeballs being crushed by the mountain.
Well, that's what's great. Is like the French scene reminds me of FaZe Clan as well. It's like if there's one thing in life I hate, it's the people who go, "You're doing that wrong," and you go, "All right, mate. What way should I do it? Fuck, should I know? Just know you're doing it wrong." Well, brilliant, yeah, great. Well, then for all you know, logically, I could be doing it the best possible way that we found so far, couldn't I? Like, it's not what you're criticising at that point in time. So all the French scene can agree upon one thing: we don't want to play under existence. He's not a good in-game leader. All right, what good in-game leader do you want to play under? Fuck if I know. Guess I'll give it a go. Brilliant, yeah, great.
Guess I'll give it a go.
It's like the mentality, pretty much, isn't it? Like
that is a fair assessment. Currently,
don't know if you're bad if you don't try.
What do you think, Zen?
My confusion is I'm assuming G2 is paying them a lot. Vitality apparently has some money. It's like these orgs can't stay that long paying big salaries and getting it's not even nothing. It's like Ghost is better than you. It's just really bad. And so I think at some point one of them will fold or something. I don't know if how contracts work in that scenario, but one of them might die, and then from those ashes they can combine again relatively soon.
The sad thing is, Vitality joining has made it even less likely that we get a good French lineup anytime soon, because they've made these big stride into CSGO and they've paid and bought all these players out and they've put them all in their lineup. So you just know that means that lineup gets a minimum of 6 months. Like one of the things that actually kills me in CS is the number. This is why I should really get on and do some of those videos I've promised. The reason why I haven't done some of the videos, like the one with like how long does it take a lineup to be good, how long does it take a lineup to have its window closed to win, is that I wanted to actually do a real case study and like look at all the teams in history and figure it out, and then try and add in like circumstantial stuff of like, right, this event should be excluded because they had a stand-in, and really try and actually get like a number to go with the principle as well. Because it seems like everyone else in the scene has the opposite perspective to me. Like they just look at a lineup and like, well, give them time. It's like, my track record on not giving people time has to be the fucking best of all time in CS history. Like the number of lineups that I tell you won't make it in the end, that don't make it, is unreal. I told everyone the MIBR lineup would never be an elite tier lineup. It never was, to the extent that they themselves basically threw in the fucking towel at the end and said, we'll change lineups ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous. So I have no hope for any of the French teams at the moment. Like I don't even know what a good scenario would be.
Yeah.
I can't even see how any of them are going to be, like, put it this way, none of them are going to be top 5. Maybe one of them could be top 10, that's it. And quite frankly, that's already shitter than where we started with before you brought G2 up. What a waste of everyone's fucking time.
I'm still mind boggled as to how they just couldn't get anything going with that fucking quote unquote super team.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that is really, really sad, which is that the lineup that they had in G2 right now was extremely rare in the French scene over the last 3 years, in as much as it was a lineup that actually did practice properly and practiced to build up the maps and to build up strategies on maps and to build up people's roles on maps. And there were no fights in the team and people actually enjoyed practicing with each other. It's just that, unfortunately, every single intangible outside of the game and in terms of like how you'd want a team to run existed, but as a team, they were terrible. So there's the problem. Like every other team, it's the opposite. So, like, that whole angle in the French scene, because basically what people have been saying to UK players for a long time, is like, solution one, stop going with players that are going to change lineups, stop going with players that argue, just get together like the 5 guys who are going to work together and they're not going to be idiots and work to improve. Sad thing is, the French scene just did that and it failed and now they've fucked every lineup. So, there is no hope. There's no angle from which to think things are going to turn around. And the LDLC lineup, that was just pure haterism. Anyone who was telling me that that team was going to be really good. Go on then. How about, this is where, one of the saddest things to ever happen in CSGO was when Valve said that they didn't want people who are talent and stuff like that to also be involved with like heavily gambling and stuff like that. Because there are so many times I'd love to have made like very public bets with people that I can't, because I just don't want it to be implied that it's in any way like shady stuff going on. Because that's a great one right there. Like, okay, I'll give you any fucking odds you want that LDLC doesn't make it as a top team. As long as we agree we're betting 10k, there we go.
I'm not betting 10k.
3-1 on that, you know.
I'd bet $100, but 10k nah.
Is there any other CSGO related topic you want to talk about?
KNG's fake apology and how it's written by Noah Winston.
I thought
oh, come on, man. We can't do him like that. He's trying to turn a new leaf.
Yeah, new leaf. My ass. You had a whole fucking year to apologize. You burned every fucking bridge along the way. And guess what? Still fake apology because you wanted to get into MIBR, get a little bit, money again because you were dirt poor now, probably.
Just think for a moment. Enter with me for a second the mind of a Brazilian CSGO fan. Are you ready?
Oh, no.
Right. If I make a joke on Twitter, that's really unacceptable behavior and I'm baiting someone into replying to me. If KNG says he will kill someone and then says, I refuse to apologize, well, you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt, haven't you? That's who you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's kind of pathetic that this has been allowed to pass for this long.
The world we live in, isn't it? Sadly,
yeah, it's really this is how this. I didn't really expect much, but even then, I still find myself being let down. It's kind of incredible how fake this kind of statement is, and yeah, I get it. You have to do it for a press statement, but
Gotta appease the people who are still outraged by it previously, Gotta say, hey, I'm a new made man. I'm new again. I promise I won't do it again.
I promise I don't hate gay people. I swear, Noah, Disney will invest now. It's okay.
I mean, fake or not, he's probably getting the chance, right? So. Oh
yeah, of course. I mean, but at this point, MIBR is so desperate that the chances go up just by doing that. So
here's the issue: visa issues, very documented. 2, it's known that he came under a tourist visa, and that was where he was caught. Now, if you are caught on tourist visa, actually getting paid money, guess what? That doesn't really work nicely in the US.
No, it does not.
I get some good lawyers. I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
Even good lawyers.
Mate, there's no good lawyers. You'd have to literally have the Disney lawyer team for that. Mate. We're not talking about you could get some guy. Oh, I'm paying him $150 an hour now. Can I get into the US after being banned for 10 years? I'm going to go ahead and say no on that one, mate.
Yeah, if the US thinks you've done anything related to either violating the visa terms, being associated with anyone. For example, Khabib Nurmagomedov, the UFC champion's father, will never ever get into the US or get a visa because he's basically a terrorist, or rather because he is associated with terrorism, he will never ever get into the US. So as a quick lesson,
put it this way, here's the problem, Zen, is like people actually think that when you like apply for a visa or something, that like, so for example, like you said, get a really good lawyer, that you could like negotiate.
No, there's no negotiating.
Your lawyer isn't going and seeing a person, you know. You're still just filling out a form, and at the end of the form, no joke, a person reviews it and you get in or you don't get in. So that's why I've given this example many times before. One of the dumbest things I've seen in terms of like commentary on the scene in the last few years was by a guy who, aside from this, actually, he's a pretty decent guy. He's that guy who is one of the Liquipedia editors. He's called like Tolkien Fanatic. And he repeatedly, every time it was on this particular topic, would tweet about how it was like 100 Thieves' fault that they didn't get like the visas for all the players. And I told him this privately, and he still kept tweeting it. So I'm going to publicly call him out on this. He knows fuck all about getting visas to go in the US. He's a US citizen for a start off. So why he would be commenting as though he knows what they fucked up, I don't know. And more importantly, I told him this story. I applied to get a US visa to work on E-League. So think about the context here. Turner Broadcasting, the company, was saying, we want this person to come to be an expert about esports and work on our television show, which is going to be live on fucking TBS. Now, this is what happened when I applied. I applied with all the correct information, all the correct paperwork. I had a legal firm look over it all before we sent it in. And I had this letter from TBS saying they wanted me to do it. The visa came back, declined, and they said insufficient evidence given that you are, in fact, capable of doing the job that you claim you are.
Okay, then.
So what that means is anyone can get turned down for these visas. Anyone.
I believe even Richards is documented, like where he had the Actors Guild or something, like even write him like a statement for him, right?
I think he had to get like a senator or something, because I had a similar thing happen basically. So yeah, the problem with that angle is like I'll go ahead and say it right now. It only made sense to go with the angle of like, God, but Kenji's such a good player. It's a shame that he's like this. It's like, I'll go the other way now on that one. Well, he is like this. Like, there's no point saying that. You're not in a hypothetical world. You can't go to an alternate reality, find the KNG of that reality and go, what? Oh, phew, it turns out he's really sick in this generation and this dimension, but he's also not an arsehole. Like, why would I want to recruit someone on my team who's behaved this way? What, you think that's not going to have any crossover in how he deals with his teammates, how he deals with like when he fucks up at an event? Like, I know for the skill you want to take the gamble, but even if you take the gamble, for me, it's like you're taking the gamble knowing that in 6 months he might be out of the team anyway. It's a mad desperation move to me to recruit a player like that.
Still, his skill is undeniably there.
I just don't think it's justified though, because if I have a team like MIBR, I'm trying to build for the long term, you know. I'm not trying to win like this next one tournament or something. Like, it makes sense to me if they want to put him in the second best Brazilian team. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why MIBR wants him, I mean, it's beyond me at this point in time.
They need two players, right? And there was that talk some months ago that called Zira was thinking of leaving if they don't start winning. I don't know if that's true or not. So that could be, a couple of reasons that they could just panic and try to get him and tackle or something.
Phelps is confirmed, so you only need one, which is probably going to go with the trade. So you're kind of set now.
Yeah.
I do love that, by the way. Think about how fucked the CSGO scene is. That existence is pure shit because his lineup did badly, even though on paper we'd all look at it and go, you had like fucking Body and Smiths and, KDS and Shocks were never going to... No. Context is not allowed to be applied when it's a play you don't like. Meanwhile, how little criticism I've seen Fallen get as an in-game leader in 2018 blows my mind, mate. Like, if you listen to people talk about Fallen, you would think we're at the end of 2016 and he's super sick and it's someone else fucking the whole team up. Like, I've never seen anyone as an in-game leader get less flack for having terrible results. It's amazing. I can't even conceive of what they think's going on in the team. This guy's still Jesus walking on water. Doesn't matter what he does in the game. I mean, I was being told for the last 2 years that the reason I have to say Fallen's better than every other in-game leader is because he's so clutch and such a winner, he won't let his team lose. 2018, I guess he just forgot to not let his team lose. My bad. It's weird how being super clutch doesn't actually help you not finish last place at WESG or whatever.
Oof. Yeah, I guess like the thing with Fallen is just like what people give to him is that, you know, this is supposed to be like a very, you know, organized era. Like, look at the system that Astralis has put in place, and they know that Fallen's the same kind of, supposed to be the same kind of in-game leader, but it's just that, you know, bad luck, not the right players, et cetera, et cetera. But it's definitely...
I love that angle as well. Yeah. So at the same time, nobody in MIBR thinks any player's bad. They all think those players are awesome. And yet, we're literally giving a guy a pass for completely failing with, as far as we can tell, all the talent you need. And yet, we have in-game leaders like MSL. Let me know, guys out there who's watching this video, when MSL in his entire life's had for 1 second a lineup as good as MIBR's right now.
Never.
And yet everyone's banging on this guy's face, even if he wins tournaments. Like, you can't win if you're certain people. Like, the sad thing is, as soon as you become a true legend in the game, you have a free pass for life. You can do anything. You can literally, you could just kill people and fans would be going, yeah, but maybe that guy provoked him into murdering him. It's like, you just can't lose once you're a That's why I've always said, the reason why Existence is the ultimate case test example of like how fucking absolute noobs newer fans are, is because they just don't know what he did in Source. So they think he isn't a legend. Like, what's mad is Existence doesn't get the legend pass, even though like he has objectively done more than many people who have the legend pass. You know, it's like, it's so bizarre.
Like, if these people would check Fairy Games 2011, 2012, go tell me where on that list there is not a single medal. Top 3 every fucking event almost. Every single time.
What about so on MIBR, what about the rumors that Taco could come back? Do you think that could help Cold Zero be, you know, great again and bring them back to the top, or is that too late now? And Zeus as well. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but those could be two things.
That's all real stuff. That absolutely is a move behind the scenes that was starting to happen. It has not been done yet, as you've seen with all the current stuff that they're talking about other players. And as I said on By the Numbers, that's a move where, like, I'll give you guys the insight here. Other fans are too stupid to understand this context. When I have to say, my read on this is X, Y, and Z, that's because I can't say a player literally told me this. So my read on it is that Team Liquid didn't want these moves to happen. It's the MIBR side that wants this move to happen. But the problem is, because obviously the players in Team Liquid do want to leave, at that point in time, you can't say, well, my choice is for this not to happen. Your choice now is like, right, if this is happening, what can I get out of it and what can I make it a half-decent deal? So the deal that makes sense for everyone is obviously trade the fucking NA player from the Brazilian org to the NA team if they're taking the Brazilian players back anyway. So if you have to and you have no choice, Team Liquid has to make the best of what they can if that move happens. If you're Team Liquid, I think it's a terrible move. Like, I don't want these players to leave. I don't want this coach to leave. These are the players that I want. These are two of the parts of the line that actually are doing their job quite consistently. I think it's really depressing if you're Team Liquid, unfortunately. But then again, they are not the ones who are pushing this. They're not the ones in position where you can blame them, actually. The only area I can blame them is, as I alluded to on By the Numbers, I would literally just sit both these people down and say, listen, I've paid you a very handsome salary. I have you under contract until month X of year Y, and we're one of the best teams in the world right now. So I appreciate you might want to leave, but unless it's a deal that makes a lot of sense to me, like I'm getting pieces back that make me a potential world number one, I'm not going to let you go. Let's just keep playing this out. And then you know what? In a year from now, whenever it is your contract runs out, you're welcome to go and pursue free agency. You can go wherever you want. But until then, I would expect you to play like a professional for my team and to continue on with the plan that until a day before this, we still all had, which is how do we win in 2019 as Team Liquid, you know? The fact that team owners can't do that is, I mean, in part it's because players are out of control at some degree, but in the other angle, it's just because unfortunately they all currently think that the PR of being the nice guy who lets his players go is better than the PR of being the guy who it stands firm. Even though I would say, if you look in history, look at two of the recent examples of owners who did that. So here's an example. It was a guy called Noah Winston who let his entire Immortal squad get ripped apart, and they're about to be rebuilt for much, much less on Luminosity Gaming. Now, if you'd have told someone at that point in time, Luminosity Gaming gets this Immortal squad, right? Luminosity was down the pecking order from Immortal. How would they ever get their players? Well, they get their players if you're so dumb you just let all these players go. Then go and look at another owner who was the nicest guy ever. His name's Jack Etienne. Fuck knows where his team's going now. As far as I'm concerned, he has absolutely sabotaged his entire team by being too nice. He's just given everyone their free, all right, yep, let me just stamp those papers there, Tarek. Yep, there you go, Stewie, see you, mate. And then who does he get in return? Not only nothing, he has, for the first time in the history of his org, managed to make them not even a top 2 NA org. He's absolutely fucked the whole team up. And by the way, here's the problem. Everyone in every other game saying, oh, but look how great he's doing in League of Legends and Overwatch. What, you mean games where he has control over the roster? Yeah, no shit, because he's a really smart guy. CSGO, you have no control over the roster. And as a result, these teams are absolutely fucked. That's why to tie back to something we talked about earlier, even though if it's me, yes, of course, I would put Karrigan on North tomorrow. But one area I cannot disagree with North on is that they are right that you should start making it so that it's a top-down thing. Like the organisation decides who we recruit. The coach decides which player we add to a team. Even if I disagree with this specific detail, I agree with the premise. And I agree that as a long-term strategy, it's a much better approach than letting players themselves decide the team. Because as much as everyone used to love to cry about how players get mistreated, players are the only motherfuckers in the world who can just take a successful team, just rip it apart completely, and then have the audacity to rebuild the motherfucker in another team a year later. Yeah. And if you're the owner, you're like, wait a minute, I got screwed then. And then that, yeah, sorry about that, boss. Fuck you. Peace. I'm out.
I just wanted more money for that contract.
Yeah, like you once said famously, Duncan, players are just plebs who can move their fingers really well.
Well, the sad thing is, even the ones who actually have sort of like the mind of a GM, they just get overruled by people in their team. Like if you only knew how many times there was a move that was going to happen of like a pure slam dunk of like player A should definitely join player B. It would be great for player A, team B rather. It'd be better for the team. It'd be better for the player. They'd instantly become a much better. If you knew how many times it was like that, and then some of the players in the team just didn't like that player as a person, and then made sure the move didn't happen. One of them, by the way, I alluded to it on By the Numbers. It's the reason why I'm so sick and tired of every possible piece of leeway being given to Stewie 2K. This is a guy who himself went out of his way to make sure Cloud9 didn't have better players the last few years, then had the audacity to fucking leave them. Imagine that. That's like your girlfriend, like purposely picking the shittest decoration for your apartment you can after you've got a lease on the place for 10 years, and then just leaving you. And you're just left with all that shit. It's like, brilliant, why have I got all this?
And then he dares say they left him.
Oh, and then of all the things, and then ask for public sympathy as well. So you get everything your way, you fuck the other person over to the max, and at the end of it you go, and I want all the public sympathy as well. It's like, well, you can't have it all, can you? Yeah. At least not from this guy from Britain, motherfucker.
Please, sir, may I have some more?
I genuinely, like, you know what? There's most times when I disagree with people in the scene, it's actually by such a small metric that it only seems like a big... So I'll give you a great example. If I think that Simple's the best player in the world and someone says, no, I actually think Device is the best player, you know what? At least it's a debate we can have, right? I don't know what I am not getting about Stewie 2K. I don't understand what it is. Because everyone's telling me this guy's Jesus from North America. But I've watched him play for 3 years now and I don't get it. I don't know what you guys are seeing. Like, he can go to a team like MIBR and not even do anything, and people tell me he still was doing great and he was doing his role well and he's still the best NA player, and if you just give him a chance. I don't get what it is that you guys are seeing. Now, I don't mind when I get proven wrong. Like, every now and then there'll be a player I didn't think was good. I'll give you a great example. Naf's probably a good one. I always used to think that guy would never make it as a top player. Actually, he developed a lot. He's a rare example of them doing it, you know. The Stewie 2K one, I don't get it. And I definitely don't like the idea that people are going to, on the one hand, tell me I'm wrong. Then when he never gets the results, tell me that it somehow wasn't his fault. Like, it can't be. It's got to be one or the other. Come on. Either you go off results, in which case you go off results, or you like me and you go off what your eye test is. And the eye test, quite frankly, has never been there for Stewie 2K. So I don't get it myself. Like, the thing is, it's not even about being a hater. Like, I actually think Automatic seems like a pretty fucking skilled player, actually. He does seem like he could be the real deal. Twists sells the eye test like a motherfucker. You watch that guy play. If you took the nameplate off Twists and you asked someone a year ago who is this player, they would be listing off like, is it NiKo? Is it fucking like Electronic? Like they would be going through mega tier names. If I took the nameplate off Stewie2K, maybe this is what I should do. I guarantee nobody's saying it's some fucking sick player. You know, they would be guessing, like, is it Kirby? Is it, you know, they'd be going through that caliber of player.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if, like, you use the footage of the major, I'd recognize it. But otherwise, probably go...
Even at the major, he wasn't that sick, mate. Like, as a team, they generally, you know, did it as a team. But, like, he had some fucking bum-ass moments at the major.
Mm-hmm. Not going to lie. That is true. Certain maps, he was good. Several, he bombed. Absolutely. They were
all that needs to be said is
Automatic
this.
one.
So people always wanted to tell you every time Cloud9 did well that he was the star player of the team. He got carried by Skadoodle in a major final. Enough said.
That ends the argument right there.
Enough said.
And there it goes.
And remember, they won by a fucking hair, by a fucking cunt hair.
It was really not good looks for Mr. Stewie 2K. Not at all. I've got a topic for...
I've got one for you. Here's a hypothetical, right? So I want to see what you guys think. So if you're in the industry, like I said, one of my big problems is every time I ever try to do an angle, I have to do it two ways, either what I want or what's likely to happen. And what's likely to happen is nearly always way less sexy because it's like, yeah, I know that player should play with that one, but he hates him. And then this other guy vowed he'd never join. You know, half the time it's just cock blocking all the really interesting moves. This is the one I want for you as a hypothetical. If you could make a move tomorrow, you can only make one move. What move would you make to try and make a new number one team in the world? What would you want to do? It only has to be for you. It's only for your own satisfaction.
Angel,
it doesn't have to be any move
Navi, pick out Zeus for Angel. Even though you keep Edward that way at this point in time, but I'd say give that a go because you've resorted and you've tried and tested everything with Zeus currently.
Okay. What about you, Zen? What would you pick as your move?
Oh, Fox to wear my VR. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I mean, obviously, I'll move Simple somewhere else. I think that's the most reasonable thing. Probably FaZe, but I don't know if that's possible. I think that would make an impossibly good team. Maybe even Liquid. I mean, he's been there. I don't know. Yeah, Simple somewhere else, I think is my move.
This is a tough one. Honestly, I think it's a Dren for Edward and Navi.
I didn't actually think of that one. It's nice.
If you take... Yeah, Zeus is, like the bottom bitch at the whorehouse, but, at the same time,
It's two dead horses in that team.
I still feel like, but one's the in-game leader and one's just exists. Be honest, what does Edward do for Navi besides, just existing on the map as the fifth person? So just give him a Dren, see what happens. I don't know if that necessarily makes them world number one, but it makes them better than they are now.
It's true.
Because the thing that makes it so rough for Navi is that, I actually have a lot of, I put a lot of weight on Zeus as an overall in-game leader. I think he does a pretty good job, but he is also one of those people where it's not even just that his fatal flaw kills him, it's that he's not even aware it exists. I can't even believe the number of bad map vetoes I've seen Zeus do this year. It's outrageous. To have players as good as he has and a map pool as good as he's had, some of these are legitimately criminal. I'm talking about ones where
best maps open.
Just ones where, I've seen him, second rotation ban the map that, the other team didn't want to have as the decide, stuff like that, inconceivable stuff. I mean, everyone knows the most famous example is this motherfucker banned Cash against Astralis. You don't even deserve to be an end-game leader if you're going to do stuff like that. At that point in time, that's I'll give you the analogy, right? And even then, it's like a little, you'd have to know the game, but here's the analogy, okay? Zeus is the guy in the NFL who, he's in the Super Bowl, and it goes to overtime, and he chooses to receive after he does the fucking coin flip. That's who Zeus would be, you know. He'd be like, oh, you just have a crack at getting the touchdown. See if you can win it. Oh, you didn't? Right, can I have a go now? Like, he's that sort of a motherfucker. So, yeah, I don't know. Just unreal, isn't it? I agree with you, though. Like, the problem with it is, like, Simple going somewhere else is the most obvious move because he's like obviously he's the best player in the world. So if you add him to another lineup, there's so much that could be done. If it's FaZe Clan, amazing. Yeah, if it's Team Liquid, also fucking amazing. Like, imagine in Team Liquid just taking Simple and just putting him instead of, like, I would say, like, Naf would be a good player to replace him for. He can do everything Naf can do, but better. And he does have, like, a superstar mentality. And he absolutely can go off against anyone. The problem with that one there is, though, I don't think he wants to move to North America. And why the fuck would he have to, right?
Yeah.
He was convinced once, but... yeah, as you said.
Oh, by the way, tying it back into earlier, I am really looking forward to Karrigan leaving FaZe in as much as now I want to see what happens to those FaZe players.
Oh, yeah.
Because now what excuse do you have? You know, now it's, according to you guys, you've kicked the problem. You think, because there's the sad thing, I know from talking to the FaZe players, they don't think anyone else in that team is a problem.
Didn't they kick the problem already, like, last year?
That they believe this shit though. Like, they legit, like, think about this. They believe that when they played a billion semis and finals and lost them, oh, it was just the guy calling the strats. It was never us. Not the guy whiffing with an AK, having a bad game, fucking up their spot. It was all just this other guy on the other side. Like, it's like, I always think the most overblown narrative in Counter-Strike is that, like, the in-game leader is behind how many rounds you win. On the CT side, people just play on their own. What are you talking about? Like, if you're fucking shot on that side, it's not my fault. I was on the other... What, so because I'm playing at the A site and you couldn't hold B, that's somehow my fault as the in-game leader? Like, maybe if in terms of if I was told the wrong player to play B, but that's about it. Like, you know, you have to take some responsibility eventually. So the sad thing about FaZe Clan is, yeah, they are a team made of some of the best players in the world and champions. And as a result, all of them refuse to accept that it could be them that's the problem. Because what do you mean, bro? I'm one of the best players or always a champion. So how could I be the problem? And what you're going to find next year is, of course, some of these guys are the problem. Or, of course, the team has a problem. So, if anything, they think that they think that this is the solution to fix the team. No, this is like step one of starting to fix the team. Because hopefully now you go to rock bottom, you find out what the problem is next year, and then you make the real hard decision, which might put you in position to be the best team in the world again. Any other games or topics?
I've got one. This is about Optic League of Legends and why the fuck they even decided to try this offseason. I look at their roster and just all of the decisions that they've made this offseason make no sense. Okay, so you keep Dokla and Big. Okay, okay, well, no, we'll get there. Okay, so you keep Dokla and Big. Okay, Dokla, he was okay, slightly below average, and a top laner. Okay. Arrow, noticeably unhappy in Optic. Didn't play well, didn't enjoy being there, but he's coming back. Lord knows why. Crown, because why not?
World champion.
I guess whoever at Infinite was doing their recruiting went back, 2 years in time and thought that Crown was, he watched that LS bid on Crown's insane mechanics and went, this is the guy. And then you pick up not only Meteos, but Dardoch. And the only way that situation works unless you're selling one for a lot of money. Otherwise, what was the point?
No, but here's the killer. Like, that's the biggest joke of all, is that they've got Meteos and Dardoch, and I believe it was already confirmed on Dardoch's stream. I think that Dardoch is just the Academy jungler.
Yeah, dude, that's a fucking dank meme. Like,
He did.
I look at their decision making and just go, why?
Someone wants to see something burn,
Problem is though, this is where you can't beat people. So I'll give you a great example. I'll pick two perfect names for you. So on the one hand, most people's actual general consensus at the moment is that cause Froggen hasn't played for a year, who even knows if he'll be good? Maybe he'll be a bottom half of the league mid laner. Same exact people take one breath in, and then I see all these lists where they're putting Crown will be the 5th best mid laner, or he might be really good. It's on what basis? On what basis? If anything, Crown's career legitimately has had failure, failure, failure. 1 year really good, failure, failure, failure. And by the way, during one of those years where I said failure, his team won the fucking world championship.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's got, the exception to the rule was the year he was good.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it was all fucking failing all over the world.
Yeah,
Domestically, he was okay, but nothing more than okay. He was just above like the second tier guys who didn't make LCK at that point in time. So yeah.
Yeah. And I have so much difficulty wrapping my head around the jungle situation as well, because neither of those two should ever be in the challenger scene. Like the fact that Meteos spent the last split, as the challenger jungler for FlyQuest is like a crime. Like whoever allowed that to happen, just shame on you. But the fact that you have probably two of the three best NA-born junglers, and I mean, we'll count Xmithy as NA-born, even though he's from the Philippines for this reason. But you have two of the three best NA native junglers, and you put one of them on the academy team just cause. Okay, if you're trying to deny, like a TSM from getting, Dardoch, sure, great. But the fact that TSM said, nah, we don't want him, mate. Nah,
well, TSM in theory could have had either of these players.
Yes, TSM could have had either Meteos or Dog and said, nah, it's not a good fit. We'll keep Greg instead.
Maybe they were so desperate and they went down the pecking order because they weren't any good anymore that they just said, fuck it, let's go to Optic and watch the world burn. Don't think that happened, though.
That's one of the things I love as well, by the way. Like, listen, get as hyped as you want about any of the players on TSM. They've signed Greg again, mate. Like, again, like I don't know what sort of a straw man people are using to tell me Greg's a really good jungler. Like, as far as I can tell, they use that sort of fucked up logic of like, yeah, but it wasn't his fault. He lost in this. It has to be someone's fault eventually. If you're going to say that, like, it's the reason why I've ragged on him loads of times for this, but I do it in like a loving manner because I actually think Mark Z is a pretty decent analyst, and I actually do generally think the Blame Game's pretty good content. Like, first of all, entertainment-wise, it's very good. Yeah. But as a concept, it is so whack because his basic premise is, like, unless he thinks someone is 100% to blame, he just says they're not to blame. So what's the point? Like, what a mad straw man scenario that is. Like, oh, what a surprise. It turns out that this one guy in a game where 10 players were playing didn't make every single possible mistake to lose his team the game. Well, fucking hell, who could have anticipated that would be the case, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Maybe they will sell us on SKT narrative where if one jungler fails, another one will step in and save the day.
Yeah. Well, TSM is just so... They're confusing, man. Their whole like logic surrounding... since we're talking about TSM now and not really Optic, seeing as their whole kind of organization is having difficulties, I guess we'll... On the subject of TSM, what happens if they're not successful this next year? What happens if Spring Split is just fucking the same as last year?
They drop off even more and go down the pecking order once again. It's less interesting to play for a brand that's not succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
Come CLG, basically.
There we go, yeah.
I have to say as well, like, one of the things I find very interesting about the next couple of years for TSM is... Sven and Mithy are a very unique case in as much as because they come from Europe and because they obviously wanted out of G2, I could believe they did want to play with Bjergsen. They thought, like, together, put the three of us together. It's one of those scenarios that, like, players do a lot. It's the reason why poaching will always exist. It's because, like, if I'm a really good player and you're a really good player, we've never played together, and both of us have, like, a couple of flawed players, we're going to be thinking to ourselves... Why are we even discussing this? Why don't I just play with you? Like, I know you're fucking sick and you'll take care of business. I'm sick, I'll take care of business. Let's just both get in a team and fucking do it. Like, a lot of people have that thought. Well, I have to say, as the years go on, it is getting less and less attractive to go and play with Bjergsen. Like, I'm not joking. If I was a fucking player now, I wouldn't go and play with the guy because not only does the track record actually say we're not going to do well internationally, but even worse, you're going to get blamed. Not him. You're going to get the blame. Like, people literally now... This is how far mental gymnastics can go. They literally believe that Bjergsen was a part of like 5 years worth of lineups without it ever being him that ever had any of the problem with the jungler.
Yeah, man.
He's the most unlucky guy of all time.
I don't think so.
Yeah, what do you mean? Both all amazing Santorin and Svenskeren were so bad. What do you mean? They were clearly the problem.
I also love, by the way, that literally every one of the players you just listed there, in theory, had their career peaks, not in TSM.
Yep.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
It's. Well, I don't even know if you could say the Santorins.
And there's also, by the way,
but
there's also another reason why it's not an attractive place to go and play. It's because actually the TSM right now is in exactly the same spot as like the Lakers are in basketball, which is people still expect you to be number one when your team isn't even vaguely number one. That's the worst team to join. Like, I don't mind joining TSM 2 years ago, where yes, there's a lot of pressure, but I should have a lot of pressure. It's the number one team we're supposed to win. If you join TSM right now, like, let's say, okay, Meteos had joined TSM right now. In theory, that lineup's not supposed to win the LCS. You know, there's a lot still to be proven. But you would have identical pressure as though you had like the best team in the LCS. Mm-hmm. So that used to work for you in the past, or rather it wasn't enough of an off-putting factor. Right now, I'd much rather go to almost any other team where I don't have the same pressure. Yeah. I play, got good teammates. Like, I think TSM's in mad trouble as the years go on now.
What's crazy is that if they start losing, they'll blame Zix. They'll blame Zix and they'll say it's the coach's problem. Clearly, you know, Zix wasn't as good in CLG as everyone thought. Like, it's like...
I think he made like that. Like, here's the thing: on the one hand, I know why he took the deal. Like,
yeah, of course.
He's you know, if you turn it around, you're going to be a genius. But like, that was an absolutely a poison chalice. And like, I have to say, like, I don't feel like it's a good. I think he's going to be dead in fucking a year and a half in terms of like as a career. You know, like, he's not going to be on TSM. I think it's going to be. He'll be the first person cut, I think, when they fail.
Mm-hmm. Because you go down the lineup and you go, okay, well, Bjergsen, he's been, you know, top 3 NA mid for, you know, forever now, you know, since he came to NALCS. Broken Blade. I know nothing about the guy at all. Like, absolutely nothing. He's just like, I played in Turkey and was good. And because everyone's building this insane hype that which I guess there is some, you know, evidence to that, you know, there have been some good EU players who have emerged from, you know, playing in the Turkish league before. But at the same time, it's like, you know, he's playing in NA. He's, you know, supposed to be this, you know, like carry top laner who has, you know, he has some, you know, sick mechanics. He can play some cool champions. You know, if the world's meta continues, then, you know, that's super good. You know, we can have a super sick top laner, hopefully, ? That can carry the game alongside Bjergsen. You know, Sven's super sick, Bjergsen's super sick. You know, we've got kind of the 3-pronged attack here. But, dog, you re-signed Greg. You broke up Sven and Mithy, which has been traditionally the best Western bot lane for the last 3 years, give or take. So the fact that, you know, like TSM is so broken it broke up Sven and Mithy, dude. Like, I have difficulty wrapping my head around like whether, like, I don't think this roster will be more successful than, you know, any of the other ones. They didn't know what to do with Mithy. They didn't know what to do with Yellowstar. They didn't know what to do with any of the strong carry junglers they've had. What's it like? What makes someone think that because they broke up a good bot lane for an unproven one and picked an unproven top laner, re-signed the same, you know, solo queue jungler who's just a ward bot for Bjergsen again, that things are going to change?
Who do we think is going to like be actually any good in LASCS?
Besides Team Liquid?
Yeah, Team Liquid look very interesting, and their coach Kane is also very interesting.
Yeah, I'd say, well, Team Liquid... let me look at the rosters. Hold on.
The big problem is this: like, people have the most whack analytical principles ever. Like, here's the good thing: I always can tell you what my principles are, and they don't particularly change over time. You know, like, I have to obviously put in the variables of the players and the teams and that. But if I have a reason as to why I think a team's good, I don't then just like 180 it to explain why they're good next week for a totally different reason. So, like, I'll give you a great example. Almost everyone I've seen acts as though because Cloud9 came top 4 at Worlds and they have a good coach, that means they're just automatically going to be amazing now. Like, I don't really get it. Like, as far as I can tell, the best player left the team. Licorice is only in his second year. Mm-hmm. Again, this is another area I can't handle League of Legends fans, right? If you were to get a League of Legends fan right now, put a gun to his head and say, do Bwipo and Licorice both remain the best top laner in their region for the next 3 years, they'd say yes.
And what if Riot changes the meta and you suck at that meta?
Yeah. Have we had to see Licorice play tanks yet?
He played him a little bit in the spring, and he was okay, but he wasn't like some super duper player. Then again, it was his, he was a rookie.
Yeah, he's a rookie. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say he can play tanks adequately. Okay, so looking at the rosters, okay, you have 100 Thieves, obviously, but dog. First of all, anyone
Really?
Hoo-hee, bro. Let's get Hoo-hee, man. We'll be sick.
I mean, they still have
everyone I've talked to who doesn't know League of... Oh, sorry, I just totally cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, they still have a decent lineup.
It's solid. You got Bang.
He's like Rio. He's the same as Rio. It's
The question is, do they buy into Prolly's system?
Yeah, the question really is that does Bang do well as in an A?
Yeah.
Does someday continue to go Super Saiyan and carry 100 Thieves? And is Hoo-hee exactly the same or slightly better now that he's back with Aframu? That's the question surrounding 100 Thieves. Okay, Cloud9, does Niski do well in NA again? Can he somehow translate his playoff performance to the regular season? And does Licorice maintain form, I think? Clutch Gaming is the weird amalgamation of Huni, Lyra, Demonte, Piglet, and Vulcan.
No chance.
I think this roster, it either does really well or they do really horribly, because Lyra played like shit last year and has to kind of return to form, and Huni needs to prove himself again. Demonte is just an average player.
Do we know who their coach is?
I don't think they've changed up any of their coaching staff, but we can look. Still, okay. Leaguepedia doesn't have any of their coaching staff listed. So apparently their coaches. Okay.
They're not going to win.
They still have Empire. According to Leaguepedia, they still have Baby Zeus as their assistant coach. Empire is their head analyst, and they have not named a new head coach as David Lim left. So I think that team will either crash and burn or do adequately.
Yeah, playoffs maybe.
Just middle of the pack.
Yeah. Counter Logic Gaming.
Shit.
Darshan, Wiggly, PoE, and Stixay Biofrost. I think Darshan's just ready to retire at this point. Wiggly, like Loco Doco said, he can be one of the best junglers in NA if given the right tools. So,
was getting an okay mid lane.
Yeah. Well, it's power of evil. We've seen that he's done decently internationally. It'll just kind of be whether or not he decides that he wants to, as they say, run it down mid or not. Echo Fox is also a weird one.
Don't skip CLG's coach, Thorin's favorite coach. Weldon Green.
Oh yeah, they got Weldon.
Weldon, the
Mind
fake
Games
one.
Weldon. He'll reform power of evil and train Wiggly into the animal that he truly is.
Exactly.
With what qualifications? Oh, the fake certificate he has. Nice.
Anyways, Echo Fox is they have Solo and Lorlo.
No, to be fair, you got to give Weldon his due. He does always claim the most unfalsifiable and shit credit I think I've ever heard anyone in the history of sports claim, which is no, I actually did coach some female Finnish Olympic swimmer, which is well, I don't know if you're aware of this, Weldon. I don't know how good any swimmers are of any gender in the world, so it's not really something that I can know if that's good or not. Is that good? Is it good? I might just make up my own thing. Yeah, I actually was the 7-time reigning coach of the South African
bobsled team.
tug of war team, and I was actually, considered a legend in my field. It's I don't know anyone from that fucking sport, so what kind of a mad credit is that to give yourself? Doesn't mean anything, does it?
God.
Yeah.
Classic.
Sadly, because this is one of those examples of where I don't really get mad at people who aren't that relevant, because since they're not relevant, you don't have to spend too much time worrying about them. If he ever actually looked for a second he was even going to be a threat, I'd just go and do some interviews with some of the people who worked with in the past and actually expose what the real shit was. But sadly, it's not worth wasting my time doing that over someone who just comes into League of Legends once a year and then fucks off and thankfully isn't part of the conversation after that.
Yeah.
He's on the appropriate team for himself right now, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So the other rosters are Echo Fox is Lorlo, Rush, Phoenix, and Apollo and Hakaho. I mean, that could be a solid mid-table team, but no more.
Top 4.
Really? Well, I mean,
Want to make $100 bet on that?
honestly, it probably could be top 4. I don't even know what I'm saying.
I mean, they're all new. They're
all new.
I feel like a lot of people missed that when I made that bet that Echo Fox's lineup. No, not Echo Fox. Wait a second. When I bet that the Golden Guardians lineup would be top 4, people were like, "What?" It's like,
but actually, it really could
the fucking league.
It could be.
The league is literally like there is one team that is guaranteed to be better than them, and that is it. Otherwise, the rest are all debatable. This is. I actually think franchising. I'll probably make a video on this topic. I think franchising has ruined DLCS completely. Because if anything, it's made people do the opposite. They've made the stupidest signings imaginable. People don't even upgrade anymore. They just do any sort of fucked up sign they want.
Or they sign one guy who's like a big streamer to get the brand out, and that's it.
Yeah, like you look at this lineup and go, okay, Rush hasn't really he played maybe 4 maps total for KT in the summer. Maybe. So, Lorlo, slightly below average. NA top laner. Phoenix, he can play 2 champions. And Apollo and Hakaho are average.
Still have to ban those champions.
Apollo is just this generation's cop. He epitomizes the average NA AD carry. He doesn't do anything good. He doesn't do anything bad. He's just there.
Average performance from everyone.
Yes, if this roster performs averagely, I guess they could be top 5. They have some decent pieces, I guess. FlyQuest, they picked up Viper, the streamer who was in Team Liquid's Academy team, and Pobelter. They still have Wild Turtle, JJ, and Santorin. Unless they do something different than last year, I don't see why they would place any differently. They kind of had 2 side grades, or a downgrade in top lane and kind of a side grade in mid lane, because, I mean, Pobelter is better than Keen, but he'll be good in NA. How much of an upgrade is that really?
He's just your really most casual mid laner ever. He's not good, he's not bad. He just does his job.
Yeah, and then all that's left is, the new Golden Guardians lineup. Optic, TSM, and TL. So really, besides TL, it's kind of, I'd say Cloud9 and 100 Thieves will be kind of contesting for top 5 slots. I don't think that's too. I don't think that's
think about how wild this is. So we exist in an era now where we're going into the 2nd year of franchising in NA. And so we've got teams that now claim they can be justified in spending some of that massive investment they took in on making their team as good as possible. Yet it is no exaggeration that you could make a strong case that the Misfits lineup in Europe is better than any NALCS lineup right now.
Oh, 100%. Of course.
I agree.
That's just in the EU lineup.
I have trouble seeing any NA team besides Team Liquid, and even then there's a gigantic question mark over their head whether or not they can actually do anything internationally.
I think they've got the pieces to now, though.
They absolutely have the pieces to. I think it's just whether or not they manage
come
to
out
put it
there
all together is the biggest question. So, besides Team Liquid, and I think in the obvious number 1 spot, I think Golden Guardians, Cloud9, 100 Thieves are the next names that come to mind, and the rest is just a free for all. I agree. NA has just kind of turned into this gigantic kind of mush of, we don't have to worry about staying in. We want to kind of.
Let's do this then. Yeah. Since Team Liquid's the only one everyone can agree upon. It looks like it's still a really good team, right? I've picked Golden Guardians as mine. Everyone has to pick who their dark horse team is to do really well. Who would you pick of these lineups to potentially do really well? So it can't be Team Liquid, but in theory it can be anyone else. Because quite frankly, except for Team Liquid and then maybe 100 Thieves, like we've mentioned, everyone else, it's pretty much, dealer's choice. It's up to you if you think they're good or bad. Who knows right now? So who would you pick?
I mean, I'll take TSM because I think everything else is shit.
The meme stays alive.
No. I mean, I really like Smoothie. I think as long as Sven can survive without Mithi. I mean, it's not going to win, but I think it's going to Worlds. Well, it's still Spring Split, but I think it's. I mean, if I can take Team Liquid, there's no other team that I'm really confident. So this is pretty good, I guess.
This seems like an underhanded pitch, but I'm just going to go with Cloud9. That seems the safest bet to me. If we're trying to pick, teams that will do well over the course of the year and possibly do well internationally, I think Cloud9's a pretty easy pick. They lost. Sure, they did lose their best player, but I'd still say that a lot of the pieces are still in place there.
Then I'll go with 100 Thieves. Because, yeah.
Here's the problem I have with the Cloud9 lineup is, like, as far as I can tell, everyone just ignores any possible downside they have. So, for example, some of their success came from using rookies.
That's true.
Rookies are by definition unproven players. For all I know, Zeyzal just goes to shit this year. I'm not saying he will, but that can happen. These things happen. Like, it's the reason why I was amazed how many people disagreed with me on the whole Whipple versus Soaz thing. Because to me, it's a very simple concept. One guy has year on year found a way to be a relevant elite level player. The other guy just finished like not even a whole year as a player of that status. Now, if you put a gun to my head and say, you die if you pick the one who's not good in 3 years, I'll take Soaz all day long, mate. Like, I can't know the other guy. What reason would I have to have faith in that?
Yeah.
But bizarrely, until people have seen someone fail, it's impossible the person can fail. So, for me, the problem with a lot of the Cloud9 lineup is, like, Niski's a pretty good player, but he's not going to be the best mid laner in the LCS. Licorice, I don't know where he's going to be at in year 2. You've got a bunch of rookies elsewhere. Then you've got the scenario of, like, what happens with the jungle spot. I mean, it looks now as though they're going to commit to using Blabber, and that Svenskeren will be the academy jungle. Well, that's not even the team that was at Worlds. That's not even the team that did finish top 4. So there's a lot of question marks over that lineup, even though they retained most of the players,
And then the most important question, will Sneaky do more cosplay?
Yeah.
No, but even their big run of form, it was just a bunch of games. If you look at the season standings, it's not that they had a huge win rate or this could continue for sure. It was just a series of, let's say, 10 games where they all played really well, but it could have been just hot streak. They could all go to shit with just 1 or 2 players not playing well.
Does the format change compared to last year? Or?
No,
it's the same. The exact same. Do we want to talk about LEC or do...
All right, and we'll do that as the last topic then. So we won't make it like a 2 hour thing. Let's do a couple of teams this one. Okay, pick an interesting team in the LEC.
I mean, Misfits for me is the coolest one that you mentioned.
Why?
Well, because our roster is the most stacked, probably.
Yeah, really. I mean, I like basically all of their players. I mean, Max Lowry is very highly rated, so I'm not #1 fan, but so is amazing. Fabivan amazing, Gorilla amazing, and Sama pretty good. So I'm quite happy with this, especially that Fnatic lost Caps and G2 moved Perks to AD. Since these two lost, these two big mid laners, I think they actually have a chance of winning.
Yeah. I think mostly just like because G2 decided they were going to hard troll this offseason and put fucking Perks at AD carry instead of, making a move that made sense. I think absolutely Misfits. It comes down to, does Hans Sama have good synergy with Gorilla?
Yeah. And
can Fabivan prove himself again as, a top mid laner in EU? Those are the really 2 questions that are hanging over this roster. And I think from what I know of Hans Sama is that he's kind of a more quiet guy who kind of is just willing to sit back and farm and, play for CS, which is, I think, synchronizes pretty well with how Gorilla likes to play lane. So I'm not too worried about them, but I think the biggest question mark is on Fabivan, seeing as he just did, in terms of his career, waste a ton of time, making bank in NA.
Well, would you blame him?
I never said I don't blame him, but I definitely, in terms of his ability as a player, he does.
On H2K was very much underpaid for how good he was compared to let's go to NA, make 5 times the salary I make for a year. I mean, you can't blame a guy.
You could definitely say he lost motivation though, and whether or not he's able to find it again. And once again, be the guy who, solo killed Faker as Zed, then, we'll just have to see. Those are the question marks for me, but I think absolutely if G2 had actually, gotten a real bot lane instead of, swapping perks, then this conversation would be a little different. But I certainly think that, Misfits can absolutely be, the best team in EU.
What about the new Fnatic lineup?
I honestly know nothing about, who is it, Nemesis, right? That's their new. I
think LS knows about him. Didn't he scout him somewhere in one of his videos? He
played for Mad Lions. He played in the EU challenger scene.
I think I recall LS saying something about Nemesis being good, or was it Kelsey? I can't remember. One of the two.
Okay, so from what I see, they were the team that lost to the Giants roster that would end up becoming Vitality in the finals of the Spanish league. So, sorry, go ahead. I don't know.
I was just gonna say I don't know Nemesis at all, but they still have the other 4 pieces, and they could always find another mid laner or the same mid laner. They've done it before with Reckless, so they could get Caps back.
That is true.
And be good for Worlds, but in the spring I think it depends on this Nemesis.
But couldn't you also say the same thing that Thorin said earlier about Licorice and Zazel about
unproven
Whippo though? What happens to Whippo? Sure, he can play carries, but all that we saw him play carries was him run it down on Victor top, a couple times in Worlds, and then Soaz given the chance, we're about to lose, but do you want to go on stage, for the fans? So I
don't know about Whippo. I think he'd probably be fine. The thing is, do they have enough carry potential in the team? Because before, Caps was carrying all the time, Reckless some of the time, Whippo some of the time. And if you take Caps out, it becomes a bit.
I'm still not sold on Reckless being different than he was. Sure, there have been times where he's looked like a complete player, but I still see shadows of the player that we meme about so lovely. Forgiven still rolling around laughing in a Greek army base somewhere every time Reckless doesn't flash forward to get a kill or play 3v2. So I have trouble. Sure, can Fnatic still be as good as they were last year? Absolutely. Who knows? Maybe they for whatever reason, Fnatic has always managed to find a decent replacement to the star player that they lose. Xpeke left, Fabiven joined. Fabiven left, Caps joined. Whether or not it actually works out this time, unclear. But they always manage to pull through somehow. So I won't exactly rule them out based on Faith TM, but I know absolutely nothing about Nemesis, and like has been mentioned earlier, Whippo is he could just be absolutely dog meat after a couple games, and Soaz will still be Soaz.
Thing is, the angle of they got all the good mids in the past. This will probably good. Those sorts of narratives, I have a classic saying for them. They only work until they don't anymore. So TSM makes every LCS final means nothing now. It means absolutely fuck all. They didn't do it anymore. So who gives a shit, right? So my problem with that one is, you know what? Fnatic has done a great job with getting talent over the years. They've managed to get a lot of really good players. This is a pure rookie they're gambling on. So actually, this has among the highest chance to fail. A lot of the good players they got in the past at least had some track record, some reason you could think they were good. I'll admit the Caps and Brox are one, whoever pulled that in. Here's the irony. This just shows how people don't give real credit in League of Legends. As far as I know, the person who got Caps and Broxer into Fnatic was NiKo the Pico, the guy everyone thinks is pure shit and absolute garbage. So no one gives him any credit. He's the one who fucking found those guys and convinced them to pick him up, and then convinced them to play around him, even though at the time they had Reckless, who was no, play around me. It's just because someone didn't do well elsewhere in his job, that he could be really good in other respects, So my problem with that one is, unless this Nemesis Sky turns out to be really good, I could see the team getting a lot worse. I could see them being the 4th best team in the LCS, and then LEC now, and then that being making you irrelevant, basically.
They do still have Young Buck, so.
Oh yeah.
They do still have probably the best EU coach, so we'll have to see what happens.
I do think we have the same problem in NA, which is after fourth. I mean, who is there to contest? Top 4 is almost guaranteed.
It feels if for whatever reason, like it's supposed to be like LEC and LCS are supposed to feel so deep, but in reality, you examine it and it just feels so shallow. Like
it's the same shit, just different name.
You've got like Rogue. What the fuck is Rogue supposed to do, man? Like, we got Prophet, Kikis, Senkux, Hiku, and Wadid. Man, that's a roster that's really, making dents in the EU scene. We'll show them what's up.
The sad thing is you can see the teams in the EU that have like money to spend because a whole bunch of them have some big time names on their rosters. But considering franchising starts now in EU, fuck like 6 of these teams. Like the whole bunch of them where it's like, these are ridiculous players you have on your time. Because what happens is, because the market is unproven, even some of the teams, like to even get in a franchising, remember, you have to be able to commit to millions of dollars. So in theory, every team in there should have money to spend. Some of them have 100% gotten budget rosters. Like anyone who thinks that Excel is getting UK players because they're from the UK, you're beyond gormless. Like someone like you doesn't even deserve access to like a fucking keyboard. Like you don't know what you're talking about. No, that means that there were no good players available. They just got whoever they could.
Yeah, it's kind of
these teams added last minute are garbage. SK Gaming, exactly. Like who gives a fuck about these lineups?
Yeah, it's pathetic. Like who the fuck is Crown Shot? Who is Crown Shot? Who is Self-Made? Like, and they got fucking Faker's backup mid who should never have been playing anyways. So people meme and say, it's the guy they benched Faker for, but it's that guy. Like
he didn't make any dents either, so
yeah. It's besides G2, Misfits, Fnatic. Like who do you even talk about? And I guess Vitality because they only changed one piece. Like who? Like there's no one worth writing home about. It's all kind of just it's kind of pathetic.
Yeah, very weak.
Like the one I will say, like I'm generally not a big fan of the Vitality lineup anyway. I thought that team was pretty overrated, but I'll give them credit. There's a chance the Mowgli guy makes them better and they add some extra dimension, and become a good team. I'm generally I just think that team's a bit like in a perfect world it should just be like the 6th best team. So the fact that they were that good just shows how bad the LCS was.
Yeah, I think Cabochard is way past his prime and Jizuki's really overrated. I don't think that. Like, props to Yamato Cannon, I guess, for, turning that lineup into, the team that nearly made it out of groups at Worlds. But I'd say I would agree with you in saying that it's more so a statement that Europe has done. Like outside of the top 4, Europe is incredibly shallow.
This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Andreas, Snazore Westerlund, Gardner Wilson, OllieJ, Tobias Bernasconi, NateDOhDoubleG, James Harding, Kyla Harris, Travis Greb, Daniel Yordanov, and as always, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for some of my upcoming content? Perhaps you want to ask me a question in my monthly AMA. Do you want to see some teasers? See who's going to be the next guest on one of my shows? Maybe you want to take part in an esports discussion with me. Well, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.